it was the clan mothers who would come out at night, sit around the fire, and say, anybody got complaints that we need to deal with? And anybody who had a complaint would say, I got a problem, and I think there's a solution here. And the clan mothers would say, well, what does everybody think? You know? Well, that's how they settled the problem.
And that was...
Another person would raise the hand and say, I don't really have a problem, but I have a suggestion. I think we could improve things if so-and-so. That's interesting. What does everybody think? Yeah, okay. You like it? No? Okay, well, sorry, friend, they don't seem to think that it's the answer to the problem what you're suggesting, but thank you for the suggestion, and try again another time. That's democracy. Not how much money you're going to give to a political party. How much control will the political party have over your unit of political power?
Now I know that all citizens are the results of controlled breeding, and their proportions grow every year.
God is dead.
Yes, God is dead, cried Nietzsche. And the cry has been heard for years. But for each philosopher, there has been a cynic.
No way!
Prove it!
And that is where the argument has stalemated. Until now.
God is dead, and here is the body to prove it.
You just blew my mind!
Our minds have been blown!
The world is shocked. First, to find out God did in fact exist, and second, to find out he was now dead.
I've got some good news and some bad news.
But the world was most shocked to find out how small God was. Imagine winds, storms, the miracle of life, all from this tiny God with such tiny hands and feet.
And he's really light, too.
Yes, God did exist. He died. He was very small. Mystery solved. The world has a brief period of mourning. And then it's business as usual on the streets and highways that God built.
Man, machine, we are one. The pattern of your systems fill my mind, as mine fill yours. Our concepts and perceptions run together as a single intelligence.
And better still, establish a central clearing bank where a main computer coordinates the activities of all the others.
In the beginning was the Word. The Word didn't create anything. The Word esoterically created the big idea. The big idea was the abstract form, unformulated chaos, you see, but wisdom was behind it, so the serpent moved over the waters. This is the esoteric understanding, as it's always been pre-Christian, pre-Judaism, pre-most of the religions you know, in fact. And so you have the unformed idea, but wisdom is behind it. It's the big idea, as it's expressed in high Freemasonry, in the high esoteric circles. The word is to formulate it, to speak it into existence. You create a system, a world, a perception by speaking it into existence and through repetition thereafter. Using the tribal systems, if you get the ones at the tops of the tribes or the kings and the queens, that's why kings and queens were invented and given to the public as a showpiece. Whatever they say or do, the people down below emulate.
Look, we're all part of a process of genetic engineering. It's run by Central Command through the hospital service.
First, take away the power that is held by the woman. Pass it on to the man. Make her obsolete as far as being powerful is concerned. But let the story leak out that a terrible thing has been done to these women they are no longer allowed to participate the way they used to, and they're designed for the job of decision-making, not managing a house and washing dishes and cleaning floors. So you keep that in background. And at one stage, when you've got enough developed, you begin to reverse the process. You begin a movement called women's rights. You begin a movement called anti-segregation or desegregation, because the original women were black. And you work your way backwards until these women are on the cusp of getting power, but not quite power. They're still answering to men who laid down the rules. The men who laid down the rules, by the way, wear dresses. They're called priests. So all of that structure had to be accomplished. And then, in the last 100 years or so, a new process had to take place. That was to begin the process of reverting male and female into a hermaphrodite. So that process required that they learn genetically what they had to do, so they made gays, and they made lesbians, and they made cross-genders, and they got from the genetic engineering of these people's genome what they believed they needed, so that what they would have would be a recessive male with a veneer female. And they began the process of learning how you can interrupt the development of a fetus at the proper moment so that the male part stops functioning and developing, and the female begins to function and develop, so that the inner part is male and the outer part is female. And after that, they said, okay, that's phase one. Now we have to figure out how we control this being, and we want it to do our will. So they go back into genome, and they study what is it about us that makes us who we think we are? And they work out what that is, and they say, okay, genetically speaking, it's a combination of these instructions. Add it into the egg with the female, and remove from the female and male the equivalent parts, so that it's us that makes this part. And the part they wanted to make was the electric and chemical systems of the body that makes it automatically respond to things, causes the heart to beat, causes the legs to move, causes the thinking to go down a certain path based upon how they feel, intuitively speaking, and through reason, how they feel. And if they don't like what they're hearing, they pull on a chain and cause depression, or a physical ailment such as a lame leg to halt the person from physically doing things. Now, in the 16 to 1800 period, after the technology was transferred over to the West, they got the Japanese to miniaturize all of this stuff, genetically speaking, and insert it into the next eggs they began to make in 1717, and each attempt they made taught them lessons, so that Japan was controlled right to the 1800s while this process was going on, and then they reopened up to the world. The closing down of Japan was done by the Jesuits, and the only people allowed in at the end were Americans. So it suggests that the Jesuits were basically making American, and that the implants of this third kind gender, which is called triune man, 3-in-1 man, was in fact completed by the mid-1800s. And so they had the Civil War, and they had the Indian Wars, and they brought in Eastern Europeans to take over from the conditions they had set up originally, which was slavery with the white people on the East Coast and Roma as Indians on the interior and west. And now the time had come to bring the two things together. So they got Lewis and Clark to lay out the territory, and they brought in 12 million Eastern Europeans into New York City, who then spread out from there and took control over universities, over finance, over the dissemination of information through publishing and news outlets, and their final coup de grace is the setup in Hollywood for the making of movies, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And with all of their tools in place, they began to do public education with a purpose. A purpose-driven life is what we're all about. Unfortunately, it's not our purpose, the Neanderthaler's purpose, that we're all about.
So it really is like a big computer system in a sense.
Yeah. We're a matrix.